Okay, there we go.
Hey, so sorry.
No worries. We are here.
Okay.
Great.
A better angle to do that's like not my I don't know, my bed or whatever. Uh,
I
I don't know. Is this okay?
think it's fine. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Cool. Okay. So I don't know if you had time to read over those responses. Is that about what you were kind of thinking? You had any other experiences or things that that you wanted to share or that you were thinking of?
I read through them. I loved them. I got them up to the left of the screen.
Okay, cool.
And
I forget, right?
yeah, I'm just thankful that we're chatting and that we're going through this process of hopefully getting to the bottom of kind of how healing from binge and emotional eating works, like at a maybe at a surface layer in the beginning with kind of journaling and then but kind of getting into that IFS part, soul, self. I'm excited. So
I love talking about that stuff. So that's great.
okay, so all right, I think our intention right here is to be just fully honest, like you're not over binge and emotional eating 100%. You've made a ton of progress. Um and our intention here today is for someone who has, they're thinking about this stuff. They want to be free. They want to get over this stuff. Hopefully, we can really get into the weeds here about how this actually gets done. And so maybe we can start with your journey from kind of the beginning. Basically, like where'd you get started? Like how long did you start binge and emotional eating? And then we can just kind of start from your beginning and kind of go all the way down and get into things. So how does all that sound? And great.
Sounds great.
Okay, so yeah, tell us about binge and emotional eating. When did you start? Um, yeah, go
I
from
was thinking,
there.
and it's super sad because I mean, really, as long as I can remember, I can remember being really young and being at a Thanksgiving with an uncle there, and probably I want to say like 10 or 11, and just being like, man, I'm so full, but I just can't stop eating. And my uncle was like, well, then stop. And I just couldn't or didn't. And it was like, I remember it's my first memory, but I think it was always just kind of something that I really turned to for comfort and for boredom and for anxiety. Yeah, for lack of anything else to do or not knowing what else to do.
And when did you become conscious that it was like not like this was a separate problem? Sometimes people are dieting, they're binging for years, but they aren't really conscious that it's a problem, that it's a thing that has a name, etc.
I think about, let's see, how long have we been working together? I mean, I knew that my dieting was a problem. It's funny because I didn't necessarily characterize it as binge eating until I actually saw some kind of like advertisement for you. And it was like, or maybe this is how I was led to you. It was a binge eating questionnaire, scale or something. And I was like, ugh, I'm just gonna do it. I was feeling really gross about myself. And so then I took that question and I was like, I mean, I knew I was kind of like in my mind, like borderline. But then I was like a screaming hot 10 out of 10 or something. And I was like, oh dang. I mean, and then as I thought about it, it was like, yeah, do I pretty much always eat past the point of being full? Yes. Do I emotionally? Yes. Do I do this often? I mean, I would say that I was eating like way beyond full, like every single day. Um, so I think probably when I always on the subconscious knew on some level that I was doing it, but I don't think I really consciously, as soon as I was aware when I took that quiz, that's when I was like, I think I actually do have a problem, um, and it's more than just food. like, because I had also I talked myself down so many times of like, shamed myself back into getting into shape or whatever, because I'm like, food has zero power. Like, this is not that big of a deal. Food is not making you eat it. All you have to do is just not put it in your mouth. This is like the easiest thing in the world, Jen. And yet I still couldn't do it. Um, so that's, I think, when I found you, and then I reached out.
Yeah, that quiz is based on the DSM-5, the medical criteria for. So I just copied and pasted the exact same questions, and it's funny that like thousands and thousands of people have taken that quiz, and I think it's popular because people don't have a word for it. There's some like food is there's some struggle with food, but it's like, "Oh, is this it?" Or that kind of draws people in. There's not a lot of awareness about um this stuff. So, anyways, that's the point of the quiz, and yeah, I think your experience with that is pretty similar. So yeah, and I guess like what were the big? I hear a bunch of things from. I guess what were your biggest motivations and actually like scheduling a call, like really seriously thinking about it? Was it from like hey, I'm not going to live longer, or maybe not that. Some people, that's what they're thinking. Like, I got to get my cholesterol, my blood levels under control, my weight. Maybe it was family. Maybe it was just, I don't know. What was like the thing in your mind that really got you to reach out?
I mean, I think there were a few things. I think, again, I can't remember if it was like the holidays, and which is a particularly bingy time for me because I love to cook and I love to bake and I love to feed people. And that's like all we're doing in the holiday season. But then I think I did get my cholesterol back, and I like had high cholesterol or something. And
Mm.
I was shocked, because as much as I'm like hard on myself, body image wise, inside my mind or in another part of my mind, I'm like this young, in shape, athletic 20-year-old. And like for me to have high blood pressure is like a gross old man that eats McDonald's all day thing. And so that did wake me up a little bit. I think honestly though, the biggest thing was how it was affecting me um physically. Like I once I kind of realized how high I was on the scale, and then I started looking at myself. I mean, I would eat and it would knock me out. I would basically like fall asleep right after dinner or something. And my kids, I basically would like not want to read them bedtime stories, or I would like not want to go play soccer after dinner, or I would like, I was just super lame. And I realized that I was using it as a drug. I was using it just like people use alcohol to numb and to just kind of relax and to do whatever. And so I think that combined with the cholesterol and then like my weight gain was really what kind of like, okay, I got to do something.
And there was something you mentioned, like when you were 13, you defined yourself as like someone who's honest or something.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I hated that. So in every other part of my life, I just decided long ago that I was no longer going to be dishonest with myself. I was always going to be honest with myself. I was always going to be honest with everyone and in every situation, that as honest as I could possibly could be. Um, and when I realized what I was doing with my body and with my food, I realized that I was just a total hypocrite, and that I was like, my words meant nothing to myself. Like, even
Yeah.
if I with everyone else, I was being totally dishonest and I was hurting my body. I was going against my body, and I was going against the promises that I made myself to be healthier and to be more moderate and to actually listen to my hunger. And so it made me feel like a fraud.
Yeah. And I guess I feel like this is really core. What really holds people back is, these big concerns before they take that first step to getting better. Of course, one is like, hey, will this process actually work? Is this a right fit? But I think, even deeper than that is sort of like, okay, the process works for those people, but I am the person who doesn't keep their word. I am, broken. I am.
Hmm.
What do you, uh, what was that like for you? Did that come up for you? What was that like, kind of, like starting a program when you had sabotaged in the past and couldn't trust yourself. Like that is so big. That is like that's so
It
tough. I mean, that's just that's
really
you
it was
know,
really hard. It was such a vulnerable thing because, now I at the time I didn't realize, right? But all my parts were like, "You're never gonna stick to it. You're never gonna do it. It's gonna be just like everything else. And you're gonna be fat forever. You're gonna be a lazy fat mom forever. And on the other hand, I had these other parts like, "You're fine, you're beautiful. This is a great time to be fat because society is finally okay with it. And I just had all these voices. But it was really scary. I remember just talking with you being so scared about any kind of like accountability with journaling because I was just like, look, I'm not an accountable person. There's accountable people, and like that's not me. So it was really scary, but I think in the end it was because of my kids and for all my weakness in like habitually doing things. I am pretty goal oriented and pretty motivated to be a better person and to really improve myself. And I guess ultimately that the scale weighed heavier on wanting to improve and to be a better person, to be a more honest person with myself, that helped me really take the plunge.
and thanks, Jen. You mentioned parts, and we're gonna get there. And you mentioned journaling, accountability with journaling, and also for the listener, you know, Jen doesn't really journal much anymore. So I think this is important. Like, and this is not like a failure type of thing. Talk to me like, because for a while you were journaling a lot, right? And it's pretty normal for people to sort of, yeah, eventually kind of taper down as they get more into parts and more in the self talk and so forth. Um, and a huge fear of people is that journaling is going to be too much time. It's going to be too overwhelming. It's going to be the accountability is going to be awkward. What would you say about, I guess, journaling for someone who's never really heard of it? Like, kind of, can you do a deep dive? What was that like for you? How long did it take you? How did it help you? What was accountability like? I mean, we'll kind of go through these pieces one by one, but yeah, just maybe kind of starting off on a general perspective, how journaling was for you and everything like that.
Yeah, so I can say that I was definitely intimidated. There was a little bit of a subconscious eye roll, but I was ready to do whatever it took, right? Um, I think I have 4 kids, one with special needs and a super busy life and husband. And so I was really, really worried about time and me sticking to it. But I just did it because it really helped having the app. I mean, the app was amazing. I loved, especially when you added that like directly shareable feature. It was just so easy. And so I just let myself do whatever I could. So in the very beginning, because I didn't know what I was getting myself into, I literally just wrote what I ate and like the 5 of the 20 thoughts that were going through my head at the time. Um, and I guess what kept me going was that I was just so surprised at how much it worked. I you know I don't know what happened. I think, right off the bat, I think I lost. I mean, I was going through some stressful stuff, but I think I lost like 8 to 10 pounds in the first several, I don't know, I want to say month. And all it was just asking myself, checking in with my hunger. Like it said, like walking through the app, like, how hungry am I? No, the smiley face, the frowny face, the scale of thing. And then like, sometimes it'd be like a few words. So it was really great having it on my phone. And I mean, it would take me like 10 seconds before my meal. And then sometimes, we'd sit down as a family and I would take a bite and I'd be like, oh, wait, I didn't journal. And so since my phone was right on me, I would just super quick write something down. And even that was enough to clue me more into my hunger and like the reasons why I was eating you know what I as so I was becoming more aware, um and without knowing it, because the way that you introduce IFSF, sorry, what ISF, internal fit
IFS.
IFS.
Yeah, yeah.
It was, I don't want to say sneaky was is the word, but like it was very slowly, and so I didn't understand really what was happening, but my mind was slowly becoming open to these patterns that I had always had and with eating. And I think, I've progressed to maybe saying like, oh, I'm really stressed out about my son today. Like, I remember when I was young, like going to bake cookies whenever I was really stressed or something like that. And that's all I said. And then just then as we got more and more into IFS, the journal entries became longer and more introspective. And I really enjoyed them because it was super productive. I mean, it was like super efficient soul work, I guess, and that I was seeing I was feeling a lot of internal change with it. Um, but there would be times where I would go like almost all week without journaling. I'd be like, oh crap, I'm supposed to email my thing to Jared. And so then I would like go and remember some of the highlights of my week that I had with food. Like, hey, I actually checked in and I was like, what? I'm not that hungry. So I'm gonna like not eat half of it. So I did feel like there was enough I could add late entries, and I could also add one big entry that kind of gave a big overview of how I did that week. I think the biggest thing, honestly, Jared, with the journaling was your like really truly non-judgment. I really felt like, after I got to know you and I trusted you, I was like, he really, really seems genuine about not hating me about not journaling.
Thank you. Yeah, no, yeah. I love it.
Judging me, and that honestly just made it a lot easier to screw up or to tell you about my screw ups or feel like I could journal whenever I could and not worry about when I didn't.
Oh,
So
thank you. I mean, thank you so much. I feel that my own journey too, the reason it progressed from because I was doing this mindfulness Zen stuff and that was sort of my equivalent to journaling. I didn't have a journal back then, but hopefully the journal is this training in mindfulness. And I guess for me, when I really started, I think is when I started seeing a therapist. But I felt like for me, I had this background in mindfulness. So that's why I always start off with the journaling first, is so people can start pausing, start feeling, start looking, and just seeing how that goes. But yeah, I think this whole talking about it without shame, with like
mhm.
you can make mistakes. You're free to make mistakes. We're free to, not be perfect, even in terms of journaling. Like yeah, there's something. Yeah, that's so important. So important. Like to, hey, I did this and I'm gonna look at it and I'm not gonna be hated. I'm not gonna be judged and stuff like that. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, yay, Jen. Hey.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Yeah, yeah. So before we get into IFS, because that's sort of where journaling goes, am I missing anything about journaling in terms of, I don't know, hunger or food satisfaction, or I don't know. I mean, I'm not the perfect interviewer, right? So I wonder at this
Uh,
point, before we start to transition to IFS, is there anything you'd like to add, or maybe
I
not?
just that what journaling did is I don't know. I imagine that I'm like a lot of moms and a lot of people out there, especially raised in my era, where you train yourself to be tough and to push past any perceived physical limitations, any ungodly amount of tiredness or stress. Like you still go to work, you still put a smile on your face, you still help your kids, and you still try to be the best person you can. And I realized that what that did is me being tough um, and capable. It meant that I was like numbing all of my body's signals about, needing rest or being hungry or being full. Like I really was not in touch at all with hunger or being in my body. And it's still really hard for me. Um, I'm a little bit better at it now. But I think what journaling did for me was just the habit of it made me pause before eating, be like, okay, you know, am I feeling hunger? What does that feel like? I'm like, yeah, I think I am. Green light, go, or no, your body really isn't hungry. In fact, it's begging you not to eat. Like it's so full from that last meal. Like the kindest thing you can do for yourself right now would be to give it a break and like maybe go for a walk. So that's kind of what journaling did for me is it helped me kind of re-meet my body and its signals and try to start the relationship of like, you know, it trusting me with those signals again, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess this is transitioning to the parts. High level, how does journaling and IFS and parts work kind of go together? Or rather, let's get to that question next.
Okay.
What are parts? What is self? What is internal family systems? High level, in your own words.
Okay. Okay. I like broader scope or like you want me to go into all the things?
Let's do broader, and then we'll slowly kind of just figure out our way and talk about the smaller details.
Okay, it's internal family systems. And so it's this way of interacting with the different like parts of you. So like different voices that you hear throughout your day, like, you know, things that say, oh my gosh, I hate that guy, or like, oh my gosh, I'm so fat. I can't believe I'm putting this, I have to put this dress on. I have nothing else to wear. Or like all these different voices that you hear throughout the day, or like, oh my gosh, you know, like my spouse is driving me crazy, or whatever it is. These can be viewed as different parts of you and as different people in a family. And I love the family model because it makes perfect sense because we all have like a super dysfunctional Uncle Jerry. And then we have like this angry grandpa. And then we have this super doting mom, or we have this wonderful friend, or, you know, that means well, but never gets it right. We can quickly make that that analogous to our internal family and like these internal parts. And so once I understood like, oh, this is like a family, I was able to look at them, mean that you have, you know, multiple personalities within you or multiple people within you. It's just a way of interacting with the different parts of you um, that were hurt or scarred or that were created based on other, you know, things that have happened throughout your lifetime. And so um, when you interact with these parts as a family, um, you start to get to know the parts, and with the help of someone like Jared, you start to learn and identify yourself,
I didn't
like
get that.
your true
Could you
oh
try again?
sorry, here you went off. um you you start to learn what your true self feels like. You know, I consider myself a spiritual person and I prayed a lot, and you know, I've always kind of felt like, you know, I have this spirit within me. But I guess this was different work because I could not stay there. I could not stay in that energy. I didn't know how to ask for it basically, or how to open the door to self energy. And that that is probably the $1,000,000 thing that happens as a result of this therapy, I think, for me, is being able to now I have, like, through your help, Jared, even just that imagery of, like, I'm going on a walk, I'm leaving my parts here, I'm going to walk on my favorite trail in Hawaii, and I'm gonna go get my self energy, and before I interact with these people in a super bad way, you know, or, like, even my external family, but also my internal family. So you discover yourself, who you are, who you always were, without any of your experiences, who you were born as. You know, when you know we are not what has happened to us. We are what we always were, I guess, in my opinion. And self with a capital S is that part of you that is whole, that innately part that is still whole, and that is fully
Hmm.
functional and fully ready to, you know, help moderate and bring together these different dysfunctional parts of your family. So the self feels like the therapist. The self feels like I'm doing this right. I don't know. This is what I've gotten. And
Yeah,
Jared's
what does self feel like? What does, yeah, what is self? What does it feel
I
like? Yeah, I love it. I love it.
I feel like we're having a family intervention whenever I have like this there, whenever I have a therapy session and I know I have the serious issue that I'm working through. It's like we're saying it's an intervention. We're all going to family therapy. Maybe some of the parts wait in the waiting room. At some points, all of them are in the same room, but yourself as the therapist that has like this neutral, beautiful, confident, kind, and loving energy. And it is, with no judgment, trying to hear and get to know each of the protector parts. Um, knowing that
Yeah.
once you gain the trust of the protectors and the firefighters, that we will be shown these exiled parts of us, these parts that we created that were too painful to look at, that we've put away. And so, with the help of the self and the other parts, we can go through, the portal of, where these really hurt little children are, these little events that happened, and we can start to, first of all, heal and inspire confidence in the protectors that we are stronger now and more capable, and that our situation's better, and that we have a self to lead from. And then secondly, to kind of really, really be with and listen to the deepest, most hurt parts of ourselves, so that we can heal them, so that we can love them and give those exiles like the love that we as children, or even as adolescents, or sometimes as adults, what we should have gotten, um and when you do that, when you do the process, even if it's imperfect, even, I mean, all the time, I just couldn't believe how I would be looking at a piece of paper with the steps on it, and I would be like, okay, number one, flesh out. And I would try to flesh out. And then number two, like, it's not intuitive, right? But it still worked every single time. And it's just like amazing. I cannot describe the amount. I guess it's the feeling of being unburdened. The lightness and the confidence and the joy, and just light. It feels like you're like with a razor blade scraping off paint that's on a window, and just letting the light out. It's just so incredibly healing, in a different way than I've been able to experience yet. And I do feel like I've been able to incorporate IFS with my spirituality and with my own thoughts of, and make it personal to me, and
Yes,
make
yes.
it meaningful.
How so? This is hugely important to me.
Okay. So, like, for me personally, how I
Yeah,
connect,
yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
I mean, is that everyone's spirituality is totally different. Um, and and that's totally cool if you don't believe in God, or have that, kind of something in your life. But for me, I believe that we were all a spirit. Like, we are an eternal spirit. And I feel like
Mm.
when I use IFS, I can see in every single one of the world's religions, um, just ways that, we as human beings, maybe without the luxury of IFS and the vocabulary and the science or whatever, have created processes to affect the same thing in ourselves. And, I don't think it's saying IFS is saying there is no spirituality, or chicken or egg thing. I think that they both work together symbiotically to just make it like so incredibly rich. And I think that IFS explains why, when we go to church and we sing a hymn and it's this beautiful frequency, why that feels good, and why when we repent, in the Christian doctrine, um, we feel so much better. And that's because we are connecting with ourself. We are connecting with our true self, despite we are saying, no matter how much we've screwed up in the past, that we are here now, and that we're ready to do more, to progress and to do better. And I love that synergy. I love knowing that, connecting with myself, when I ask myself to connect with these parts, that I'm also connecting with, the divine within me. And I'm also connecting with, the person that God truly intended me to be, like, where I am at my essence. And so that's been really, really wonderful for me, and really faith inspiring instead of faith canceling or whatever. And it's also really cool because I see it in all the other religions. There's all these opportunities to release and to get back with self energy. Every time you pray, every time you say even like maybe even like a ritualistic prayer or something in other religions, every time you try to achieve emptiness, anytime you are trying to be filled with gratitude and serve others, what you're doing is you're tapping into the beautiful self energy that we all possess. And you're leading from the goodness within you. And you're leading from a place of abundance instead of a place of scarcity, which is you with all of your past traumatic experiences. We don't have to live that way. We can live in self, and we can live, with joy and purpose and intention despite everything that's happened to us. And I don't think that I really, despite my lifelong journey of pursuit of spirituality and being close with God, I never like had this way of thinking about it has just added a lot more depth to how I think about it and how I feel it and how I live it in daily life. It's not like yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Let's because this is the weeds here. I think people can understand how journaling kind of helps with spotting patterns and hunger and fullness and thoughts and so forth. But this language, this vocabulary, this model that's not too complicated, but there are a few parts or words that people are probably unfamiliar with: protectors, firefighters, exiles, and self. Um, yeah, how do those work briefly? Like, what are some examples of your protectors, your firefighters, and like their relationship to exiles? And yeah, yeah,
This is kind of fun and funny to me. Sometimes it's funny to see my parts because they do, and it can also be sad. But it's kind of like when you get together and you go to Thanksgiving with your family and you're like, oh, there's Uncle John. He's such a weird dude. Or like, oh my gosh, my grandpa's like the most anxious person I've ever met. But you still love them, right? So these parts of me that I've discovered, I mean, I named them for mostly like I would say like the most predominant feeling that I feel when I recognize them. And so as I got to know my parts, I had a very, very, very huge shame part. So I have one named shame. I have a very huge, very overactive inner critic. It's actually, he's more relaxed now, you know.
Mm,
I've sent him on vacation a few times.
mm.
It's been great. And I had also this enabler friend who was trying to tell me all the time how amazing I was and how perfect I was and how I didn't need to do anything except for eat all the time because I had worth. And um what else? So those were my protectors. I think those are my managers. I also
Yeah,
had
and real quick too, like, so they are like, their purpose is, can you explain their purpose? Or like,
yeah,
because someone who maybe is new to IFS, like, they wanna get rid of some of these parts, like, kind of the idea too, I know you said you sent the inner critic away, but, like, one of the ways that, this model's so great, I was just talking with someone yesterday at the Eating Disorder Center, um, and how normally the medical approach, normal types of therapies basically try to tell you, like, get the inner critic away, reframe it, it's not true, blah blah blah. They try to block it out. And when you said sent away, I know you kind of probably worked with it a little bit to
yeah.
in a different way before it kind of relaxed back. How
Yeah,
did you work with that? Like, the understanding how these protectors, like, their roles, like, can you elaborate on that?
yeah, sure. Okay. So Um, we all have protectors that are protecting some really, really painful kernel, like something that happened when we were young. Some people have more trauma than others, but everybody has it. And or even if not big trauma, with a capital T, like these little things that happened that have kind of helped shape how we think internally. So everyone has these things that they have, in a sense, locked away. For lack of a better image, I when we call them exiles, and I envision them as like those poor little children that like parents that stick them away in a shed and like barely feed them and they never get to come out and play or see the day of sunlight or have love or anything like that. We've locked them away. because we don't want to, because the pain, to look at the pain, and this is from the protector's point of view, the protectors are scared to death of these exiles, and they are scared to death of me seeing the pain of the exile and seeing that pain again, reliving that pain again. And so they will do anything within their power to kind of mask that or distract me from that pain. So, one manager would be, I mean, my shame manager, especially with eating in my body, it would be like, "Oh my gosh, please don't tell me you're gonna eat again. Like, you're not hungry. You just had all those things. Like, why are you doing this? What is your problem? Like, you you just asked yourself if you were hungry." This is even after I started doing IFS. You just asked yourself if you're hungry, and it was an emphatic no, and that you're still hearing this again. And then I would feel terrible. So that, in working with that part with Jared, I was able to realize and ask it like, well, what is it about this that makes you so angry? Or what are you actually trying to do? What are you afraid of? And the protector very quickly was able to say, like, look, I just want you to be happy. I want you to like hurry up. And finally, you've told me like what your weight loss goals are. And like, I just want to hurry up and get you there so that we can finally be happy, you know? And when I asked it again, I remember being like, well, and then what? Like, once I'm happy, what does that mean for you? And I remember that part distinctly saying, well, then maybe I'll get a rest, like maybe I'll get to take a break. Like, who knows? Like, the possibilities are endless. So we have all these different parts that love us so much and that will work tirelessly to manage and protect us. And they will do so in maladaptive ways sometimes because they're immature. They're not fully developed, and they weren't developed with self energy. Um, the shame, my enabler friend, is there, and she comes in and she tries to protect me from feeling unworthy of love. And she's like, no, eat it, you're fine, you're beautiful, like you're beautiful just the way you are, you can't starve yourself, you must eat, you're not eating enough. And when asking her, like, when she's happiest, she was like, I figured out as I started to get to know her, she was really only not anxious and she was really only happy when I was eating. And when I asked her why, it was because she was basically polarized. She was trying to counter the effects of shame. And she was trying to just make me feel loved and make me feel just loved no matter what size I was and no matter what I ate. And if I was eating, then I was making a decision that I obviously wasn't fat enough to not eat. So in a way, she was protecting me from feeling, even if it was for moments, feeling overweight and feeling bad about myself. So those are just two examples of two protectors. In the end, really what we were able to find, and through Jared, like through the help of just a therapist that can help you kind of like untwist all of these different parts,
Yeah, yeah.
is it? I was able to see the exile, which was this little girl who really did truly feel like unlovable and not good enough. And um,
And
you know,
and this is yeah, 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 sorry.
yeah, no.
No,
So
yeah, this is the protectors is how this work is safe. I think this is very important that this work because we can you talk about how we I don't know, don't rush into things. Like this trauma can be very explosive, volcanic, tender, painful, like
mhm.
um and people can be very scared and rightfully so about getting into the demons in the closet or whatever they want to say, but they're not demons as we understand them more. It's like these firefighters. The binging is a firefighter. Maybe we can talk
I
about
was
firefighters real. Sure, sure,
talk about them. So we
sure.
have protector parts that are trying to protect us so valiantly from feeling any pain. These are the kids that like, scream at the doctor's office when the sight of a shot. They just like,
These are the managers too, the ones that like are organized, perfectionistic, workaholics, caregiving, like obsessive, calorie counting, thinking, body shaming. They're all kind of trying to protect in their own way. Yes.
and it was really enlightening when you told me like that society rewards managers. It's really hard and it's part of our society because society rewards these managers. Society rewards perfectionism. You get straight A's, you get a full ride to college. You know, you're beautiful and you're a perfect weight, like you have zero problems, you get all the guys, like whatever it is. You have all the self-confidence, all the fun at parties, whatever it is. So it's definitely ingrained in us culturally to have these managers.
And that's
They're
why the parts aren't all bad too, right? Like, they do serve a role. We don't want these things to just go away. We don't wanna yeah. So
Yeah,
anyways, yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
they're not bad. They're all good. They're like all these super sweet little kids, like doing the best that they can. They just don't know a better way yet. And that's your work, right? Is to teach them a better way. So then there's firefighters, which are like my biggest, I love my firefighters. They're like the bingers, they're the Netflix, whether it's on food, whether it's addiction, whether it's on Netflix, they're like the adrenaline junkies. They are like basically when the protectors they feel like the protectors aren't doing their job or they haven't been able to do it well enough, the exile's like coming and it's about to come out, then it's like dial 911, call the firefighters, they rush in, and then you basically just numb yourself so that you can't feel any of the exile's pain.
Yeah.
And then that cycle can go on for obviously for people's entire lives if you don't look at it squarely in the face.
And this also explains, like, this tremendous inner conflict, why people can't stop, this internal
Yeah,
battle, because
exactly.
the firefighter, because the managers are so concerned that they work too hard. Then the firefighters are like, "F you for too much control." And then I always give this analogy of two sailors on a boat, and they're both leaning off the side. They can't trust each other. So, if they relax and let up, then the boat capsizes. So they both got to go like this, and then they're both like doing extreme things. And so there's this polarization, and that's a big thing in IFS that we work with. Like, um, yeah, how is that working for you? That's like a big part in helping all these pieces become ready to get to the exile, for more self energy to come through, is when these parts start reconciling, reconnecting, not being so like battling each other, locked in these sort of patterns. What's that been like for you too, and how do you explain that?
Well, so now that I mean, like, so much of this is just like not even having the vocabulary to talk about.
Yeah, I know, right?
But
And I think
one of
that was the point of this interview too. That was something that we wanted to like
Yeah.
give to people. Like, hopefully, I know there's a lot to it and we can't get into like all this stuff, but yeah, no, there's a language to this. There's these patterns, and there's a you know
And language is a unifier and it gives power, right? And so um now that I have the language of polarization, right? Now I can, when I see my parts on either side of the boat, so like, you're so amazing, you can eat whatever you want, or like, don't eat anything, you need to starve yourself for 3 months and you still have plenty of food storage, you know, like when I am feeling like that much polarization, it's a flag to me to be able to like, okay, my parts are really polarized. I need to like, let's go get some self energy. Let's have a meet and greet. Let's bring them together and remind them of the actual situation. That there doesn't need to be any fear. Like everything's okay. Like I'm sorry if, and you can talk to them. Yeah, you can apologize to them. Like sometimes I'm like, you know what? I think I lost sight of, my self energy for a while. I'm really sorry. I kind of went back to my old patterns. I was feeling worthless or I was feeling really bad about myself and my body and I don't have to. So I can see why, you know, you were triggered and you were flared up. But can we go back to remember that time when we met each other and everything wasn't as scary and we realized that our current life situation is really wonderful, and really supportive and loving and
and then
body.
you might also say too, like, hey, I see how you're trying to protect me right now.
Yeah,
Like,
like we're doing your
like, you're doing your job, and
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. So basically the polarization, so now that I have vocabulary, like, oh, my parts are polarized, I need to go check in the self and give them some love and like go spend some time with them. um then it's so helpful. I mean, it's so helpful, things don't get crazy out of control with my eating, but also even just my negative thought processes and where I would, tend to go. I would kind of be obsessive sometimes about certain thoughts and outcomes and things. And this vocabulary and this way of dealing with my parts is so helpful because I have a lot more cues to be looking for, and I have a lot more tools to deal with it when I see it.
Yeah, and that's tying back to journaling. The cues are sort of this gateway to parts. Oftentimes in journaling, it's not going to stop all the cues or the patterns and triggers, but you'll become aware of them. And the cues are like these points where it's like, oh, there's probably some polarization going on here,
Mhm.
with parts. And okay, you know,
I was just gonna say too, Jared,
sure,
like,
sure,
thing that it gave me was so much more self-compassion. Like, I just remember feeling like at times, I mean, I felt like practically, especially with food, but like unstable. Like there's something wrong with me, which,
yeah,
it,
yeah.
but like,
No,
um,
this is the sense that so many people have. Like millions and millions of people are
breathe-
like, there's this sense deep down, like, yeah, there's something wrong with me. Like this unshakable noise in the background, just the way reality is, like the way reality is gravity. Like there's this
yeah,
sense, and it's not true. But it makes sense why people would think that because they got this exile that to protect. Anyways, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But what
yeah,
is that, I don't know, like sometimes I would have such polarized parts that they would just be so contradictory. It would be like, oh my gosh, am I like losing my mind?
yeah,
you know,
right, right.
you- it's like Smeagol, and um, Master's our friend, and then like other things, and it makes you feel crazy. But in the end,
Yes,
once I
yeah.
have these tools, I can be like, no, I'm not about to split right now. I have these different parts who have not been taken care of, and all I have to do is just go back to my true self and like spend some time with them and realize they have legitimate reasons for being upset or scared or worried, and that's all this is. Like, it's nothing more.
Nothing
And
more. There's nothing to be afraid of. Even the Smeagol, even the worst inner critic
mhm.
is trying to help in its own distorted
It's
way.
yeah.
And you can get and I guess one question as I just hear, how do you access self? How do you personally do it, like today, or how would you teach someone to do it, and I mean it's complicated, right? Sifting through the parts and kind of asking them to step back and um I don't know, but this seems important. Like the
Yeah.
ability to return to self. I guess this is like almost the fundamental thing that this whole thing is about. Even journaling is sort of like the precursor. Like, hey, can I pause? Can I
Mhm.
sift? Can I come to my truth? Like that it starts off maybe with journaling, but then it kind of becomes something else where it is coming back to self, coming back to light or truth or calmness, clarity. Yeah, I guess so. You know what I'm asking. I guess how do you do this?
Well, so I mean, I think I needed your help to figure out a way to do it for the longest time, right? I really personally, for me now, I am a pretty visual person, and so I do need to visualize, kind of almost. I don't know if it's hypnotic or whatever it is, but I now have that, like I'm going on a walk. Like when I know I'm not living in self, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling insecure, I'm feeling like I might binge. Maybe I'm in the middle of a binge, like I can take a break and go on a kind of like self walk, right? You're walking down this path and leave all the polarization, any kind of bad feeling or bad thoughts or scary or hurtful or maybe even just energetic thoughts. Just kind of leave those behind, and just if I keep going, wait until I don't have any of those. Um, and I have like this place where I just truly love to be, and I visualize myself being there, and it's just myself. And I try to think of the qualities that are in self and think of myself in those ways. So, like I remember it was really helpful. I'd have to keep referring to that map um, that you had. I got to charge my phone um, so it doesn't die on us here. Um, that the self is creative and calm and, um, confident and kind and has gratitude. And so I just kind of say those things and find evidences in my life where I am those things. And I don't know, it's actually a lot quicker and more intuitive than it sounds. It's very much now, it's kind of like muscle memory. And I just like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to get into self and I can get there really quickly. But I do always usually start with some kind of image. Um, like I have, it's like giving myself a timeout, like when your kids are going crazy and you're like, okay, I need to go regroup in my room really quick. It's almost like that. I go regroup, I come back, I find in like 1 minute, I can remember what my life goals are, what's important to me, and how I want to live my life and, live with more light and confidence and less anxiety. So it starts with an image. But I think again, that just came with practicing with you, Jared, and like learning what it felt like to feel nothing. Like learning what it felt like, I have ADD and I have about 10,000 windows. If I was a computer, I don't even know how much RAM I would have, like all the time. And I honestly feel like doing this work has like done more for me in managing my ADD than any medication or therapy that I've done before, because I'm able to strip away all those things and go there whenever I want. Um, and it makes things a lot more clear. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a feeling, and it feels almost like a reunion of like my spirit being like, oh, there I am. Like, remember, this is who you are. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
not a
eh,
psycho. Yeah, okay. And then I can go back and handle big life decisions or interactions either with my internal family or my external family much, much better.
Yeah, and then when we ask them to step back, it's sort of like this thing that it's sort of like, "Hey, like, are you okay with me stepping are you okay stepping back? And if not, like, what's going on? What do you need me to know?" So again, we're these parts are always they're not shunned. They're not pushed away. They're not, so just for the listener who is probably ingrained in this model of society where, I mean, just do it, just get over it, just think positive, right? The kind of like the listener is going to be coming at this conversation with that model. And so just reminding the listener that like when we ask the parts to step back, it's a much more collaborative process and it's not like forcing them and not all the times are they ready to step back and reveal the self energy. So just wanted to remind the listener, yeah, like that's this energy of no parts are bad. Um, they're to be connected with. Yeah. So anyways, just had to throw that in there. Yeah.
Able to be so successful with it is, I mean, you modeled like loving. I mean, I don't have an axe murderer part, but it felt like, all the crazy thoughts and all the parts just as loving as, the hurt little girl, or just as loving and as valid as the enabler friend who was really trying to be kind. And so that set a model for me to be able to be that way. And I think like we have to be so loving with our parts, like especially the really angry, sad, like hurt ones.
Yeah.
They're the ones that were really hurt the most. And the more loving you are, the more they trust you, the more they're willing to let go of, that or pull the curtain back of the exile. But I just wanted to touch upon the fact that like there was one time where that really big session where I had that huge kind of opening, if you will, towards the exile. It can be really destabilizing. It might, like, I think I wanted everyone to know that like it is hard work. And I think we did do a lot of work with the protectors, but I think in looking back, there might have been one or two that I wasn't necessarily listening all the way to that we
Yeah.
did mission of.
Yeah.
And I was not super stable like the
Yeah.
couple afterward. And I was like, Jared, I need another session like right now. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't, when that happened, I couldn't unblend. Like I couldn't figure out what was self. I couldn't figure out what was which part it was, what was the exile. And so that experience more than anything else taught me how important it was to make sure that all of the protectors and all the firefighters are being heard. They're feeling loved. They're feeling, trustworthy, like worthy of our trust, and they're feeling valued and they're feeling equal with all
Yes.
the. before.
Oh, this is so good.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and so once all these parts, these protective parts, these defensive, the thinking, the binging, the planning, the critic, once they're understood for their roles, they can be appreciated, they can be seen, they can be validated, they can be understood. And
And
then
then
that kind of builds up the self energy. And then you earlier, like maybe when like earlier in this conversation, you mentioned this word unburdened, and you gave an analogy like scraping paint off or something like that. Um, so this is sort of when we are finally the protectors, the firefighters, the self are all sort of harmonious, more or less. The eating is more stable. There's more mindfulness. There's more ability to be present. There's just more connection, I would say. And then kind of like this final stage is where the exile, the one that's been locked away, that is now able to be seen or you know instead of it being overwhelming, like past trauma is overwhelming, it's able to sort of be connected. And what's this working with the exile been like for you? And can you elaborate on what you meant by unburdened?
yeah. I mean, these are like the most tender and beautiful moments for me. I mean, these are, I mean, sometimes it's so hard and so sad. Um, but it's really like I think it's like I don't know, it's the gold at the end of the rainbow. It's the peace at the end of like this river of sorrows. It's where all the healing and the goodness lies. So now at this point, instead of being scared of it, I think even my parts are trusting that okay, more healing's coming. So let's just, we trust her enough to like let's see, let's show her, let's see what progress we can make. So once we've been able to, really stabilize the internal family, like put some function back into them, introduce them to each other, even get them to where they're getting along and they enjoy being around one another. Once you get there, I mean, you're really golden. Then they kind of just are very willing to let you see. When I have seen my exiles, it's always been very surprising. It felt kind of like I was swimming through murky water, and then all of a sudden, something would become very clear to me, and there would be an image, and a feeling. Sometimes it would just be a feeling, and then I would push through that, and then there would be an image. Um, it For me, it's often been, a lot of my protectors are male or boys or men. There's a few females, but I think all of my exiles have been
And your
y-
family of origin was like you had brothers and
brothers. I have, a dad, and it's a lot of male energy too. It's like a Spartan society. It was like, um, so, um, yeah. So all of my exiles have been like younger girls. Very, very sweet, um, hurt, confused girls. And so, the one, Hear My Pain Exile, I named her because, after a
mm,
vision about, a trauma that I had with the birth of my second child, um, I realized the parts kind of let me see. I thought I had dealt with that trauma. I thought I had really worked with that a lot with other therapies. But because of this parts work, they were able to let me see that I actually hadn't, which is why I kept having like all these almost like re traumas and reopening it. And so I realized when they let me opened it, I relived the trauma that I went through. And then I saw this small girl there, and she was so, I mean, I don't know what the word is to describe it other than like hysterical,
mm.
but like in excruciating pain and screaming at the top of her lungs. Like nobody hears my pain. Like I am in pain. No one sees my pain. And like she's screaming at the top of her lungs, like, I am hurt too. And and I just remember feeling so taken back by it because it was surprising. Um, I had always focused on my daughter's pain. Um, and I don't know.
And yeah, and there's something, yeah, and this is where the deepest healing, as I understand it, happens when we have enough self energy to receive the exile's pain without to receive it. To
Without letting us, yeah.
yeah, to just to be there, just to be present and see it so that exile, sometimes the caregiving part wants to like play and make it all go away. Other times like other parts come in and try to do their thing and but just asking these parts to step back, and then the exile eventually, the exile, the parts of us, it senses that it's not alone, that and also it also, and these other protector parts, they can see that your self energy can contain the pain of the exile. It can handle it, it can accept it, it can be with it, it can tolerate it. And this is, yeah, this is those moments where the deepest emotional pain that blocks us, that the protectors don't trust that we can handle, they see that we can handle it, so they don't need to binge because
Mhm.
the self can handle it. Like,
Yeah, that was like secondary.
like this is where the final lock gets turned. The
Yeah.
final, like, the exile is releasing its pain, and yeah, and it can even start to shift too. I think sometimes these exiles, they have these distorted beliefs that we don't even they might say like, I'm broken, and like our job is just to see them, and we don't even need to correct them, and usually over time they start to sort of change their beliefs or how they see the world, but it's not like this forced process. It's more of a connection to self, and yeah,
Yeah, I think you always have to help me. I very quickly have caregiver parts like every single time. I think when I get to my exiles, like, it's okay, like, don't worry, we'll take care of you, or whatever it is. And so it really does help to have, at least for me, someone to be like, it's okay, no, actually don't speak right now.
yeah, yeah,
Be with the exile and let her feel all of the things and let her keep screaming. Something that was really important and really hard for me with that particular exile is that it wasn't like healed right away. I mean, that took,
yeah.
I was able to introduce these other parts to her, shame and an enabler to her. She felt all alone. The other part of this, of her plight, was,
Hmm.
she because no one saw her pain, like no one actually saw her. And so, when she was able to be let out, in a sense, everyone, all of my different parts heard her screaming, and they all were forced to be confronted with that pain. And I just remember having this really beautiful image of them all like crying,
Mm,
empathy,
mm,
love, and
mm,
they were surprised, but they were all just like, if
mm,
thing. And from that day on, it was almost like
mm,
it would just caretake her. I would let them just caretake her, and I would visualize, you know, these
mm,
other the family, like, actually hearing her and letting her say it over and over again. No one heard me. No one heard me. No one saw my pain. No one helped. No one was there. And they would just listen and just hold her and hug her and love her and feed her and give her blankets and take care of her. And it was this imagery for about 2 weeks that I would kind of tune into. It took about 2 weeks until she started to feel like
mm,
she actually wasn't alone anymore, and she was heard, and she finally was heard, and people finally value the trauma and the hard things that she went through. And that was when I got like, I mean, even if the scale didn't move, I got like 100 pounds lighter. I mean,
yeah.
she was unburdened, and so was I. And I think that
Right?
that is what it's all about. And then I
Yeah.
get to And so you have this experience and you're like, "Oh my gosh, let's just do that with all of them." You wanna do it with all of them. I was gonna say though too, I keep having this come to my mind,
Mm.
thing about the parts and the exiles and what's so beautiful, and it's just like a real family, is that the parts and the exiles, they do grow and they do change and they do progress and they do mature. And that's why this model is so awesome, because you know, it's just giving them what they need, you are able to now objectively, like, I'm able, because of all the parenting books and therapy that I've had, now I parent my children very differently, than I was parented, and I treat their statuses very differently. And so now I can go back to this little rejected little girl, or this person that was in so much pain, and give them what I should have gotten, what I would give my kids now. um and because that's coming from you, all the parts and the self and like all the things just trust you so much more. And it ends up, instead of being like this negative feedback loop, it's this positive feedback loop where you get better and better at it. And the system trusts you more, and you get lighter and more confident. And the eating, so this is what's so weird, is like I haven't thought about my eating in like forever. It's like a
'Cause that manager doesn't need to think about.
symptom. It's like I'm focusing on myself. I'm working with my parts. I'm doing all these things. And somehow, because I'm doing those things, all I really want is like a kale Caesar salad. Like I'm not even thinking about, I mean, did I make some beautiful chocolate custard for last weekend? Yes, I did. And did I actually want to
Mm.
like be fuzzy and fall asleep with a sugar coated a little bit, but I didn't eat the whole pan. And it's not like what I crave, all the time. So the food thing, it's like it worked itself out magically once you start unburdening all these other parts of your self, these your soul that were hurting. Oh, and then what I was gonna say too, well, the coolest thing is like the parts also change. So like I one of my parts was shame. And when he started, it was like he was this super, like, angry, aggressive. Do you remember that? Like, so harsh, like,
Yeah.
harsh or super aggressive, saying horrible things all the time. And when I finally was let into the exile, it was protecting, or what did he actually want? What did he actually, if he could do any other job than what
He
he's doing,
wanted you to be better or something, or, like, something like that, or
just be present, to
mm,
just enjoy my life right
mm,
now, this very moment, and to be grateful and just appreciate. Like, he just would make fun of me all the time about like, you're like walking around like a zombie, you're gonna die never having lived, like
mm,
you are just like so fixated on your thighs and your butt, it's pathetic,
mm,
like energy, right? But in the end, if I once I was able to soften him up and thank him for, whatever he's doing, and like really get to know him, he just wanted me to be present. And so it was almost
mm,
like once I did that, I like had to rename him. He like
mm,
grew. I like invited him on a bike ride with me, on a mountain bike ride, and it was like I was spending this quality time with this part of me that had been so neglected, because I have to be present when I mountain bike. And
huh,
so I had to like rename him, because he wasn't like this awful angry shame anymore. He had grown up. He had
mm,
turned presence, like his real wish and his real want, and his real drive,
mm,
being present, maybe a little bit,
mm,
but yeah. And so I just find that really
mm,
beautiful. Like, who doesn't love a Rudy story,
yeah.
Like, and it's like you'll end up having all these parts of you that overcome all these things and become like whole. And it's just so rewarding and so healing, you know.
Yeah, including the binging part, because that's a big
Eh,
another big fear for people is like, "Well, I have to get," like, because obviously, the rational part is like, "Okay, I gotta get rid of binging," but the binging part is like, "I'm protecting you, bro. I'm
Totally.
girl, I'm the one who's really keeping you safe and happy and all that and satisfied." And that part can transform too and not go away. Like, I know the normal thing is like try to kill it, right? But this is more like, let's see how it's trying to help, and can we heal what's underneath and work with it, and then that energy usually, the binge is sort of like you're exhausted, or there's no sort of joy in your life and you need a break or something like this. There's this pain that's coming up, and so anyways, that intention to manage pain can go a different way. It doesn't have to be with food. But the binge part, yeah, it transforms. It's more of a care, a self-care part or something like that, but it doesn't go away. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there for listeners who are, still afraid of giving up binging. It's really not giving up binging. It's really not. Like as you said, like you were just working with your parts and food got better. It wasn't like
Yeah, I
this,
really
you
I mean,
know,
but the overemphasis on binging, it almost didn't work as well. It was more like, I just yeah, it's really doing the inner work that makes you feel like a whole person, and that's what makes you not have to binge anymore.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but the binging it turns into more of like a, I guess, like, kind of what I said before, like, is binging gonna make me, and you can honestly ask yourself, like, "Is binging gonna make me feel better? Is that what I need right now?"
Hmm.
And permission to say yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do I need a nap, or do I need to, like, go talk to someone, or do I need to, like, go connect with my partner, or whatever it is? And a lot of times, I think a lot of I have parts that were scared that I was never going to binge again. They really enjoy it. And so sometimes it'd be a little bit of both, and be like, okay, I'm going to have a nice big fat big brownie, and then I'm going to go like, I don't know, or I'm going to go for a run or a walk or a ride first, and then I'll have an awesome brownie, but I'm not gonna eat the whole pan, because we all know, family, right? That's not gonna make me happy, and they're all like, okay.
Yeah, there's not that conflict around,
Mm,
it's yeah.
there's no shame anymore. Like, you can look at it
Yeah,
openly
yeah, yeah,
and okay, does that actually bring you happiness? If it actually makes you totally happy, then okay. But it doesn't ever. So yeah. And then you find other
yeah,
jobs,
yeah, yeah.
big all right. So the
Yeah.
other huge for me that was transformative was finding
Mm.
other these parts to do. And I
Oh,
just
yes.
so amazing that every single time, first of all, if I asked them what they would be doing, if they could be doing anything else, almost every single time. And I read the book afterwards. So I was like textbook before I even read the book. They would just be like, we'd love a vacation. It'd be awesome to sit and play and do nothing.
Mhm.
Just wanted a break from their just like overtired, overtime hours. There's that. But then also, if you ask them after your vacation, if there was anything else that you would like, if there's a different job, if you weren't doing this job, what would you want to do? And it was like the inner critic thought about it and was like,
Hmm.
suppose I could be your hype man instead. Like, satisfaction would be a lot higher, I think. Yeah, yeah, that sounds good. And be like, great, I could totally use a hype man, you
Yep.
know? The enabler friend could be like helping me be moderate and check in with myself. Would that be okay with you, enabler? And she was like, yeah, that sounds really nice, because then I won't get the evil eye from inner critic anymore, you know? And then they
Yeah,
find these jobs that are like way more that make them so much happier. And then you have like the hype man, the person, the adrenaline, and the like being present, and then like the bringing, positivity and self energy in, and it's like,
totally.
well, it just is so much better, and everyone's so much happier. Just taking a dysfunctional family and making it functional.
Yeah. Yeah, the internal, and, the analogy of the sailors come to mind, that the sailors are leaning off the boat. They're so distrustful of each other. They don't have the energy to paddle or to, like, look ahead to the horizon or, like, bail out the water. They're just stuck off leaning off the side of the boat, so afraid of the other one. But when they finally, yeah, go from dysfunctional to functional, it's like all that energy they were wasting kind of trying too hard or overcompensating, it can be rechanneled into this awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh,
I am
just the last
feeling
other
good with this. I love, yeah, yeah, no, thank you, yeah.
expected advantages of IFS that I had no idea I was getting into, and then I was going to walk away from. And that is, like, so much more self-compassion and so much more compassion for those around me. And so if I could
And that impacts your life too, especially in your relationships with family.
Yes, like, if you do this work and you start analyzing all of the ugliest parts that you have, and the sweetest and the cutest and the silliest, like all the parts that you have, and then you deal with them, you start looking at everybody else's, bad decisions, and you just see them for what they really are. They're these parts that are totally polarized. Your father that you love so much, but that has like these, these things that he does that are hurtful and that are so unkind. You can look at those completely different now with so much more compassion and mercy and love and understanding. And so those things don't hurt nearly as much anymore. It's almost like you become trauma proof in a way, or like, so a lot more resilient
Yeah,
because able to you're able to see like, oh man, they just don't know what I know, and I know you, I see you, I know what you're going through. That guy that flips you off and cuts you off in traffic, that person that judges you for what you're doing with your mothering, like whatever it is, you can just say like, that is a part that's protecting them from some really sad pain in their life that they had to go through. And so I'm going to give them a pass, and it's beautiful because that's other people, you're so much better at doing it for yourself. And then you just have so much more compassion for yourself too, and those different parts of yourself, and they just love that. I mean, nothing restores functionality and love and unity and flow in a good family, right? Than just loving them and accepting them and um, giving them, space or time or an out, having mercy on them. So that was another really, really huge thing that IFS gave me that I wasn't anticipating.
yeah. Our internal family dynamics oftentimes mirror the external, or external mirrors the internal, and I think that's one of the big benefits, because a lot of the pain is, whether it's at work and people are people pleasing at work and taking on too much responsibility, or being too perfectionistic in their work life or family life, or being too critical these external relationships, that it get there's a lot more tools to work with social relationships, and
Totally.
yeah.
And then you do it so that you can all talk the same language. So you're like, this art so much faster if you understood IFS. Can
Oh man, I love it. um let's see. Is there anything we're missing before we kind of wrap up?
I I will say that I'm not a perfect eater. I can say though there is like some, it's a little like intangible, but I mean a big internal shift within me around food. Most of it just being that I'm not so kind of obsessed with my eating, even
Yeah,
if a lot more self-acceptance of my body. There is a lot more acceptance of myself if I do overeat. So just kind of back to what we said, like um, you know,
yeah,
know what? Bingers, I have bingers parts that love binging. I was like, "You guys won that round," and then I can just be like, "All right, well, you know, are there any regrets?" And do you feel better now? And a lot of times you can just reason with them. They're like, "Not really," you know, or whatever. But you don't like stress over it, and there's no guilt or shame about it. It's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm such a fat, like, gross person." The way I used to talk to myself afterwards.
mm,
All right, I'm gonna
mm,
gonna go to bed and start again tomorrow and check in with self a little bit more tomorrow or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah,
Just feels more stable. I feel more stable. I feel healthier around food. I feel healthier about my body image, even though it's not perfect. I guess in
yeah,
being perfect, or I think that's
yeah,
best, right? Is even with the pitfalls, I still am not like I have all these tools to remain positive and to still live with joy and light and kind of being unburdened.
yeah. I like what you said earlier about resilience. I've been working with my therapist for a while, and he gave me this metaphor, like sometimes we have sensitive car alarms, and so the car alarm is going to go off, but it's more about how quickly we can turn it off. And does it does the car alarm just keep going "Brr, brr, 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 brr," like for days on end, or can you just like click the button on your thing to like quiet the phone down? Like we're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna slip up. How fast can we, you know, get quiet and continue moving forward. Yeah, and not cause a mess, you know. And sometimes our the shame is,
It's
you
the
know,
whole like trash the place. It doesn't have
y-
to be.
yeah, 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 like yeah,
The other thing I was gonna say, one thing that you taught me, this was more recently, one of our
mm,
more recent, is I said something and you were like, okay, so that part did its job. And I was like, wait, what? And here I am. I have done this work for so long, right? And I had to be reminded, like, oh, right, there's no bad parts. So there actually is a time and a place where they can do their job and it has a purpose, right?
yeah, no bad parts, right? That, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so but that was, I don't know. So even though
Mm,
I knew that, it was different when you said it to me like that, because you were like, okay, so that part, I don't know if it was a binge
mm,
or if, um, or what it was, enabler part maybe. And it was like she was able to come in and like say positive things, and like I was able to fall asleep or something because she
mm.
said that. I ate a little bit more, but then I was able to relax and like go to bed or something. And so I think another reason is, to look at our parts. There are no bad parts, but they serve a function. And even when you grow them up, to allow them the opportunity to do their job, I guess.
Yeah, and this is a lifelong journey for me too. Like I continue to work with a therapist, you know, to keep on bringing up my own stuff and learning about my own parts. And I mean, I'm just fascinated by this. I am endlessly fascinated by this whole journey. It is not a hey, like perfect, done, check that off the list, but more of this invitation to continually engage with deeper, meaningful things of life. Yeah, so I hear that. I hear that. Like, you know, the lifelong journey continues. Like this is a lifelong journey. I mean, yeah, there's always more to explore, more, you know, sometimes in IFS circles, it's like, how many parts are there, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
right? Are there infinity? And you know, certainly there's like major ones, but like when you kind of, there's always like nuance. You keep on getting in there. It's like, is that a part? Is that one part? Like, is, you know, are these blending or you know, there's so much to explore. And
Well,
yeah, it's just so fascinating. And um, yeah,
that's why you need a therapist. I mean, if I could just recommend, you know, you do need someone to help you sort it out. I think
yeah, yeah. Talking it out is very helpful.
exile does come out so that you kind of metabolize that in the appropriate way. And, you know, um, but
Yeah, like for someone I know, like oftentimes I'll be like, okay, that's your minimizer part, or I'll say not just to you, but to other people, but like, hey, okay, that's your minimizer part. They're trying to put things in perspective and not make you too feel bad. Ask that minimizer part to step back, you know,
yeah,
or you know, caregiving part, step back, you know, okay, okay, here's the storytelling part. It's trying to make sense of it. Step back, storytelling part, like um, you know,
yeah,
these are all protectors. You guys, you know, and people get better. They're like, okay, that was my minimizer part. Okay, minimizer part. You step back. Okay, it's fine. All right, onwards we go.
yeah. I remember sometimes I would be really clear, and other times I'd be like, everything's a mess. I need to even understand what's real and what's not real. And like, by having a good therapist can really, help you. I think it helps just maximize the progress, streamline the progress.
Well, on that note, dear listener, if you are looking for one, I am looking for clients. So it's great that you are listening. I hope you've gotten a lot out of this. And yeah, Jen, thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Really, thank you so much. I really am
Yeah,
all the changes that I've been able to make with your help.
yeah. This is yeah. No, yeah. No, this is very important to me, and I'm happy. I'm just so what's the word? I don't know. Just grateful that maybe I can somehow be of service to others. I think that's it's kind of funny looking back, like just maybe how broken I was, or like wow, like could I ever be in a position to actually help others like in a genuine way, and kind of like thankful that somehow I'm here, and
Yeah,
yeah, so um Cool. Well, the journey continues, and thanks so much for your time, energy. I receive your thank you. I appreciate it. I absorb it. I'm gonna hopefully channel that energy and just have a great day.
Awesome. Hope you do. I guess I'll see you next week.
Okay. All right. Have a good one.
Bye, you too.